Hi everyone, N.A.T here, and today I will answer the question, how many VSTs or hardware synthesizers should you have and should you use? And in my opinion, the answer is the difference between should and want to do. Let me explain. So, these are some of the synthesizers I have, including also FabFilter Twin 3. Okay, and I also use sometimes, a lot of times, Ableton stock stuff. And I also have, as you can see here, a hardware synthesizer. In this case, the Yamaha Reface CS. And so with all the stuff, when, why, which one should I use? Should I pick? Should I choose? And here's my personal opinion, and I will also be curious to hear your personal opinion. But it's this. For example, starting from Synth 1 versus Serum 2, okay? So, which one should I use? Should I use this old one? But it's very old, you know? I see no one using it anymore on YouTube. Or should I use this one, which is new and everyone uses it and they make incredible sounds, it has incredible new capabilities? So, in my opinion, one, you should use what you actually feel inspired to use, which in my case is Synth 1. Doesn't matter if it's old, the quality is completely fine, it's actually amazing. And when I open Synth 1, I feel immediately inspired to create some sound. Like in this track, for example. Or in this track. And when I open Serum instead, just because I feel like everyone is using it and I'm maybe like falling behind if I don't use it, or I am missing out, you know, just because everyone else on YouTube is using it. Every time I open it, I just feel lost, honestly. And I'm not hating on Serum 2, I think it's fantastic. And I will absolutely explore it more. But if I'm opening it just because I feel like I think I should do that using Serum 2, every time I do that, I end up with results that are unsatisfying, uninspiring. And that's what I believe about, that's my idea, that's my opinion about which one to use. But now, second part of my answer on how many of them to use. I believe that although yes, you can make, absolutely can, and I've done it, a complete song with just one synthesizer, you shouldn't force yourself to do every sound with the same synthesizer just because, again, you think that is what you should be doing. Because, again, you see people doing that all the time. It really looks like people just open Serum, different instances of Serum just to create every sound, the bass, the pads, the lead, the supersaws, the effects, everything. But in my case, sometimes I feel like creating the bass with Synth 1, then creating the main sound. I like to create the main sound, but then, for example, I might want to create a pad and think I should use Synth 1 again, but then try to do that pad with Synth 1 and get nowhere. And that's because I thought that was what I should have been doing, using again Synth 1, instead of listening to my intuition, to my inspiration, to what my guide within is telling me, which might be to use, for example, another synthesizer, like for example, Ableton stock synth, to create a pad. And as you experiment more with different synthesizers, you will find which sound you prefer to create inside a certain synthesizer, okay? For example, the other day, I was exploring FabFilter Twin 3, and I did that in a video called Exploring FabFilter Twin 3. Go check it out. And what I got out of that exploration was this. So I discovered I could do these cool sounds, kind of laid back sounds with Twin 3. And I try to do basses, I try to do modulation. Also modulation. I I don't really use it that much, modulation. You don't have to use it just because everyone else seems to be using it and because the future is using modulation. It's not true. About the techniques, you should do what you feel like doing. So the more you explore different synthesizers and the more you will kind of understand your own style. I prefer to do this kind of sound with this synthesizer, and I prefer to do this other kind of sound with this other synthesizer. And years ago, for example, I made a whole song just out of experimenting with these Max for Life instruments. I made this track here. I only used these Max for Life instruments, and I used maybe analog for making the hi-hats. Then I used Silent One. So should you have many synthesizers because everyone else is using all these synthesizers? No, you should use the one that you like. But should you use just one synthesizer just to save money? No, not that as well, because you don't have to constrict yourself to use just one VST just because you see other people doing every single sound with Serum 2 or whatever else. And last, should you use a hardware synthesizer? Should you buy a hardware synthesizer? Should you own one? And here's my opinion. This is my experience so far. I bought this synthesizer, and honestly, during the years, I never really ever felt inspired to buy a synthesizer because I felt like I didn't want to use them, basically. But I always thought that I should, again, get one because maybe I'm missing out, you know. And as I said before, that might be a trap. So this purchase I made here, it was more a should do type of purchase. I thought I should get a hardware synthesizer, even though this is like DCO, so it isn't really. It's like a hardware virtual thing, not really hardware. Voltage controlled oscillators and so on. But let's say I'm still not sure. I actually needed to get it. But as I say, you might want to explore anyway. Explore your VSTs, get the demos, explore the VSTs or some hardware synthesizer, get the demos or go try them in the shop and see if there is something that you feel inspired to do with those synthesizers. If yes, why not? Take it home. If not, you don't need it. In this case, I'm still like, this was more of an experiment than rather a thing that maybe I really, really needed. My idea was to have something I can play right away to get instant inspiration. So to recap, listen to your intuition, to your inspiration, instead of thinking of what you should do. And use the synthesizer you prefer, even if it's old, even if it's not the one trending on YouTube. 2, if you're fine using just one synthesizer to do all your sounds, that's completely fine. But if you feel constricted and uninspired, feel free to switch synthesizers, and with time you will find which sounds you prefer to create with which synth, and you will kind of create your style. I'll create this sound with this synthesizer and this other sound with this synthesizer, and so on and so forth. 3, experiment with VSTs or hardware synthesizers so you can understand which sound you like to create with that synthesizer, because ideally you can create any sound with one synthesizer, but the ones you actually like, you will have to explore and let your intuition guide you again. And 4, about hardware synthesizers, if you feel inspired to have them, by all means, fill up your room with hardware synthesizers, by all means. All my favorite artists use them, but if you personally don't feel that inspired to use it, don't feel compelled to get one. So that was all. Let me know your opinions, and thank you for watching. See you next time.